President Donald Trump has endorsed Liberal leader Mark Carney. Most of you probably heard this already, but what's interesting is that there's now a lot of progressives that are really panicked by this, who are claiming that Donald Trump is pulling the old reverse endorsement. There's guys like Stephen Mayer and stuff like that. This is what they're claiming, that obviously Donald Trump endorsed Mark Carney because he wants to hurt Mark Carney because he actually supports Pierre Poilievre. I think that the way Trump instinctually responds to things, I thought we all moved past the 3D chess thing, that's not actually what's going on. And so let's take a look at the video in which he endorses Mark Carney, and let's discuss what it actually means and why he actually did it.
We have a very big deficit with Canada, and there's no reason, much more. We have much more.
I don't think so.
Just so you understand, we subsidize Canada, and I like Canada. I love Canada. I love Wayne
now
Gretzky.
The Liberal guys,
I love his wife.
The Liberal Party is going to win now in the next election, most likely. And they were down and out. Isn't that going to make them more hostile to us and possibly
I'd rather deal with a Liberal than a
for China, closer to Canada, and that would really put us in a bind.
The Conservative that's running is stupidly no friend of mine. I don't know him, but he said negative things. So when he says negative things, I couldn't care less. I think it's easier to deal, actually, with a Liberal. And maybe they're going to win, but I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me at all.
So your end game is what with them?
My end game is I don't want to have a big deficit.
So, as you can see, the context for this interview is Laura Ingraham, who is a conservative commentator, is pushing Donald Trump on the reverse effect that all of his tariff nonsense has actually been creating, which is that in January, Pierre Poilievre was almost 26 points ahead. The Conservative Party was ready for its probably largest majority since the early 90s, and it was going to be a blowout. Now, like, polls obviously are notoriously subject to false boosts and things like that. But at a very minimum, the Liberals have a fighting chance again. And Mark Carney very well could win at least a minority government, maybe even more than that, we'll see. And she's saying this is a very bad thing. And Trump gets defensive because Trump cannot ever admit when he is wrong, ever. And so what does he do? He does the childish thing he does. Well, I don't actually really care at all. I don't care if Pierre loses. And then he pivots to criticizing Pierre for criticizing him. And you have to understand this about Donald Trump. This is not a reverse endorsement. So one, he's kind of backed into defending what he's been doing when a fellow conservative points out that it's not actually having the kind of effect that a conservative in the United States should want. But second of all, Donald Trump doesn't really care when lefties attack him. He kind of almost enjoys it, which is why he spends so much of his time deliberately triggering them and inflaming them. He really hates it, however, and he gets really thin-skinned when a conservative criticizes him. He cannot stand it when a Republican goes after him. It's why he was far more vicious about John McCain or Mitt Romney than he ever was against many of his left-wing allies, because he thinks he owns the Republican Party, and he does at this point. He's kind of redefined what the Republican Party looks like. And so it bothers him far more when conservatives don't bend the knee and kiss the ring. And so no doubt Pierre Poilievre's statements condemning Trump's tariff war, his totally unprovoked trade war against Canada, no doubt that makes him really, really irritated. And Trump being Trump, he doesn't think, he has zero empathy, so he can't think why a conservative leader running for prime minister in a country that he constantly jokes about annexing might have some pretty harsh words about said jokes about annexing. And so that's why he ends up saying, no, I actually think the Liberals would be easier to deal with. And not only does Trump believe that, I very much suspect that that's true. And I did laugh when this clip came out, because I thought, like, Pierre Poilievre right now is in his office laughing hysterically. Like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to him, because Carney and the Liberals' entire campaign was like, Pierre Poilievre is Trump. And during the Liberal leadership race, I believe we aired that clip on the Bridgehead briefing earlier. Mark Carney actually said, Pierre Poilievre worships the man. And now Pierre can just respond, like, do you mean the man who endorsed you to be next Prime Minister of Canada? Because he said he'd rather deal with you than with me. So at very minimum, it gives Pierre Poilievre the perfect shut up argument. Like 5 minutes after the clip came out, Pierre Poilievre wrote this on X. Last night, President Donald Trump endorsed Mark Carney. New paragraph. Why? Because as Trump said, he's easier to deal with and knows that I will be a tough negotiator and always put Canada first. Carney is weak and would cave to Trump's demands, just like he did when he moved his company headquarters from Canada to New York City. Canadians don't want a weak and conflicted leader. They want a strong prime minister who will put Canada first. We'll see what Canadians want. They haven't been They haven't been particularly impressive the last couple of election cycles, as some of you might have noticed, and the instability in the polls indicates that, as Winston Churchill once said, democracy is the worst form of government except all others that have been tried. And so unfortunately, we could very easily end up with another Liberal tenure. But this definitely does change a lot of things. But it's also a reminder to conservatives who are a fan of President Donald Trump, perhaps because of the genuine magnitude and scale of his political achievement, him coming back and winning the presidency, winning the popular vote, winning both houses. What he pulled off is really unbelievable. At the same time, he's fundamentally unstable in terms of how he does business. The tariffs have been whiplashing back and forth. Most of Trump's team doesn't even know what he's going to do tomorrow or the next day. He responds to situations in real time, and this puts a massive damper on our ability to actually have a trading relationship that's reliable, that people can invest in, that people can count on, that they can build their businesses around. And it's the same thing here. I don't think that Donald Trump headed into the interview prepared to endorse Mark Carney, but fortunately for Mark Carney, he got his first really big endorsement, and it's from the president of our largest trading partner, which I'm sure he's excited about. There are a few, and this is funny, there are actually a few liberals who are like, this is foreign interference. And that is so hilarious because, as some of you might remember, and if you don't, I'm here to remind you, when Justin Trudeau's campaign was really flagging, after remember all of the blackface photos came out and not even Trudeau knew how many were going to come out, because they're like, how many times have you used blackface, Mr. Trudeau? I was like, I can't really remember. And they're like, he was really young. I'm like, he was 30. Like, he was 30 years old, the last documented instance we have of him using blackface. So this was happening like all the time, to the point where he's like, yeah, no, I really couldn't say. I really couldn't say how many times I did that. And according to the insider accounts of the campaign, which have already been published by some of his major biographers, he really lost his mojo on the campaign trail at the time until his team reached out to Barack Obama's team and he procured an endorsement from President Barack Obama. And he's like, oh, the black president endorsed me. I have been a black politician for some of the time myself, so I really feel like we have a connection, and now I'm back into it. And then he got Hillary Clinton, then Secretary of State, to also endorse him. And so this was foreign interference. Like, I don't really care about it, but if you're going to talk about foreign interference, actively soliciting the endorsement of an African-American president to get you out of a scandal where you put blackface on like every 5 minutes, all the way up till the age of 30 when you were a grown person who presumably should know better. Everybody did dumb stuff when they were teenagers. When you're 30, it's kind of like, son, it's time to grow up. You know, we're going to have a chat about all the makeup that you wear all the time. But no, he got Barack Obama's endorsement. Now the liberals are like, Donald Trump endorsing Mark Carney is foreign interference. All right, well, maybe Mark Carney, if he cared so much about foreign interference, wouldn't have chosen Mark Mendocino for his acting chief of staff, considering how well Mendocino handled that file. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can Google that one. But anyways, I think it's super nice. Donald Trump has endorsed Mark Carney. He'd rather deal with a liberal. It's now foreign interference, but it wasn't when Trudeau's team solicited Barack Obama's endorsement. And so that's the crackling bonfire of the hypocrisies going on with the liberal election, which we're all going to enjoy very much. Thanks so much for joining us on The Bridgehead today. If any of you have any stories that we should cover, please drop a comment below. If you have any vigorous disagreement or heckling you'd like to do, please drop those comments as well. You can find our content wherever you download your podcast. And if you found this content helpful, please do share the video or like it. Thanks so much for listening.